great hall of the Galactic Council stretched wide like an ocean of metal and light. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy sat in their assigned seats. Each species had their own section marked by glowing symbols that floated above their heads. The air hummed with the sound of translation devices working to make sense of hundreds of different languages. Elder Rinda stood at the center of the hall. Her old body shook as she gripped the speaking rod with her thin fingers. She had lived for over 300 years and had seen many wars come and go. Today she felt the weight of every single one of those years pressing down on her shoulders. "Council members," she began, her voice carrying across the vast space through the sound systems. "I stand before you today with a warning that could save millions of lives." The hall grew quiet. Even the most talkative species stopped their chatter to listen. Elder Rinda had earned respect through her long service and her people's reputation for wisdom. 3 cycles ago, a new species joined our galactic community. They call themselves humans. They come from a small blue world in the Outer Rim systems. Many of you have dismissed them as young and primitive. This is a mistake that could destroy us all. General Teho of the Vorthan Empire let out a loud laugh from his section. His massive frame filled the specially built chair meant for his species. His red skin gleamed under the hall's lights, and his forearms moved as he gestured to his fellow Vorthans. "Elder Rinda speaks of humans as if they are dangerous predators," Teho said, his voice booming across the hall. "But what do we see? When we look at them, they control only one star system. They have no great fleets. Their weapons are simple kinetic devices and chemical explosives. How can such a weak species threaten anyone?" Elder Rinde's eyes grew sad as she looked at the Vorthan general. "That is exactly what I warned about. See only their current strength. You do not see their nature." She touched a control panel, and the air above the hall filled with holographic images. The first showed a human settlement on a desert world. The buildings were small and simple, but they spread across the landscape in organized patterns. "Humans are builders," she said, "but more than that, they are survivors. Watch this recording from their home world's history." The image changed to show ancient humans hunting a massive creature that looked like a giant elephant with long curved tusks. The humans carried only simple spears and worked together like a pack of wolves. They followed the creature for days across frozen lands, until it finally fell from exhaustion. This is how humans hunt. They do not rely on superior strength or advanced weapons. They use patience. They use planning. They never give up. Another image appeared, showing human soldiers in a great war on their home world. They were trapped in trenches surrounded by mud and death. The enemy had better weapons and more soldiers. But the humans held their ground for months, fighting with determination that amazed their enemies. When humans are attacked, they do not think like other species. They do not calculate odds or consider peaceful surrender. They begin to plan how to destroy their enemies completely. Commander Hyanki sat in the human section of the hall. His face showed no emotion as he watched the elder's presentation. Next to him, Ambassador Sora took notes on a small device. Both humans wore simple dark blue uniforms that looked plain. Compared to the elaborate clothing of other species, General Teho stood up from his chair. His movement caused the floor to shake slightly under his massive weight. "Elder Rinda, you speak of ancient history. It's these humans you fear so much sent only 2 representatives to our council. Their entire space fleet could fit inside one of our cargo ships. How can you ask us to fear such weakness?" The elder's voice grew stronger. "Because weakness is not permanent for humans. They learn from every defeat. They adapt to every challenge. They remember every wrong done to them." She showed another image. This one displayed human ships in space. They were smaller than most galactic vessels, but moved with perfect coordination. Each ship seemed to know exactly where every other ship would be. Humans fight as one mind controlling many bodies. They share information instantly. They coordinate attacks across vast distances. They turn their weaknesses into strengths. Hall began to buzz with conversations as different species discussed what they were seeing. Some looked worried. Others seemed skeptical. The Vorthans continued to laugh among themselves. "I have studied every species in this galaxy," Elder Rinda continued. "I have watched civilizations rise and fall. I have seen wars that lasted centuries, but I have never seen anything like human warfare. They do not fight for territory or resources. They fight for justice. And they never stop until they get it. She paused and looked directly at General Tejo. General, your empire has grown. Strong by conquering weaker species. You take what you want and move on to the next target. This strategy has worked because your enemies eventually accept defeat. Humans will never accept defeat. The general's forearms crossed over his chest. You speak of humans as if they are monsters. But I see them sitting quietly in their section like well-behaved children. They make no threats. They show no aggression. Seem perfectly reasonable. Commander Hyanki stood up slowly. The hall grew quiet as all eyes turned to him. He was tall for a human, but still small compared to most of the species around him. His dark hair was cut short, and his brown eyes looked calm and steady. The elder speaks truth, he said in a clear voice. We come in peace. We want to trade and share knowledge with our galactic neighbors. We have no desire for conquest or expansion beyond our current territory. He paused and looked around the hall. But we will defend ourselves if attacked. We will protect our people if threatened. We will seek justice if wronged. General Tejo laughed again. See, they make no threats. They speak only of defense. How can such a peaceful species be dangerous? Commander Heinke's expression did not change. We do not make threats, General. The simple words seemed to hang in the air. Several species shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Even some of the Vorthans stopped laughing. Elder Rinda stepped forward again. This is what I warn you about. Humans do not threaten. They do not bluster. They do not make empty promises. When they say they will do something, they mean it completely. She looked around the hall at all the assembled species. If you attack humans, they will hunt you across the galaxy. They will follow you to the edge of known space. They will never stop. They will never forgive. They will never forget. General Tejo stood up and moved toward the center of the hall. Each step shook the floor. Enough of this foolishness. The Vorthan Empire claims the Sol system by right of superior strength. We will take it within the next cycle. Let us see how dangerous these humans truly are. The hall erupted in noise as hundreds of species began talking at once. Some tried to speak against the Vorthan claim. Others remained silent, not wanting to anger the powerful empire. Commander Hyanki and Ambassador Sora looked at each other briefly. Then they stood up and began walking toward the exit. As they passed Elder Rinda, the commander stopped. Thank you for your warning, he said quietly. I hope they listen. The elder watched the humans leave. Her heart felt heavy with the knowledge of what was coming. She had done everything she could to prevent the disaster ahead. Now she could only wait and hope that the galaxy would survive what was about to happen. General Tejo watched the humans go with satisfaction. Soon he would show the galaxy that the Vorthan Empire feared no one. Soon he would prove that human reputation was just empty words from a fearful old alien. He had no idea that he had just signed his empire's death warrant. The morning sun cast long shadows across the Earth Defense Command Center. Captain Jinwoo stood at the main display screen watching the daily patrol reports come in from the outer system. Everything looked normal. The mining stations on the asteroid belt were working at full capacity. The lunar base reported no unusual activity. Even the deep space sensors showed nothing but empty space and distant stars. Admiral? Su-Jin walked up beside him carrying a cup of coffee. Steam rose from the hot liquid in the cool morning air of the command center. She had been up all night reviewing defense plans, and her tired eyes showed the strain. Any word from the Galactic Council about the Vorthan claims? She asked. Jinwoo shook his head. Commander Hyanki sent a message 3 days ago. The Council is still debating. Most species are afraid to oppose the Vorthans directly. We knew this might happen, Su-Jin said quietly. The question is whether they will actually attack or just try to force us to surrender. Before Jinwoo could answer, alarms began screaming throughout the command center. Red lights flashed on every console. The main display screen switched to an emergency view showing the edge of the solar system. Admiral called out Lieutenant Minky from the sensor station. We have multiple contacts jumping into the system. Large ships. Military configuration. the screen filled with images of massive Vorthan warships emerging from hyperspace. Their dark hulls gleamed with energy shields and weapon ports. Each ship was 3 times larger than the biggest human vessel. "How many?" Admiral Sujin asked, her voice calm despite the crisis. 47 capital ships, Admiral. Plus escort. Vessels and support craft. Total enemy force over 200 ships. Ginwu felt his stomach drop. The entire Earth defense fleet had only 60 ships total. Most of them were patrol vessels and frigates. They had maybe 12 ships that could match a Vorthan capital ship in direct combat. "Signal all ships," Admiral Sujin ordered. "Battle stations. Form up in defensive formation around Earth and the Moon. Send emergency messages to all civilian stations to begin evacuation procedures." The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. Human ships raced to take positions, while millions of civilians on space stations and lunar colonies scrambled to reach safety. The Vorthan fleet moved slowly through the system, their massive ships advancing like a wall of metal and energy. Dr. Yunsu was working in her laboratory on Luna City when the evacuation order came. She was Jinwoo's younger sister and one of Earth's best weapons researchers. Her current project involves studying captured alien technology to find ways to improve human defenses. "Doctor, we need to leave now," her assistant Jamin said as he burst into the lab. "The shuttles are loading for the last evacuation runs." "Give me 2 minutes," Yunsu replied, quickly copying her research data to portable storage devices. "These files contain everything we know about Vorthan shield technology. If we're going to survive this, we need every advantage we can get." She grabbed the data cores and followed Jamin toward the evacuation shuttles. Behind them, the lights of Luna City began shutting down as the last humans prepared to leave their home. Captain Jinwoo stood on the bridge of his ship, the destroyer Defiant, watching the enemy fleet approach. His 30-ship task force was positioned between the Vorthans and Earth. It was a hopeless fight, but they would make the enemy pay for every kilometer of space. "Enemy ships are powering weapons," reported his tactical officer. "They're targeting our defensive positions." "All ships, this is Captain Jinwoo." He broadcast to his small fleet. "We know the odds. We know what we're facing. But we also know what we're fighting for. Every minute we hold them back gives more civilians time to escape. Every shot we take might save 1,000 lives." The first Vorthan plasma bolts lit up the darkness of space like artificial stars. The energy beams struck human ships with devastating force. The destroyer Courage exploded in a ball of fire and metal. Cruiser Determination lost its forward section, but kept fighting with its remaining weapons. Ginwu watched his ships die, one by one. The Vorthons had better shields, better weapons, and better technology. But the human crews fought with desperate courage, ramming damaged ships into enemy vessels and firing until their last weapons went silent. "Captain, his communications?" Officer called out. "We're receiving a message from the Vorthon flagship. They want to talk." The main screen filled with the image of General Taeho. His red skin looked even darker in the light of the battle. His forearms gestured dramatically. As he spoke, "Human captain, I am General Taeho of the Vorthon Empire. You have fought bravely, but your defeat is certain. Order your remaining ships to surrender, and we will allow your people to live as servants of the Empire." Jinwoo looked at the tactical display. He had only 8 ships left out of 30. Earth's orbital defenses were being systematically destroyed. The enemy held every advantage except one. General Taeho Jinwoo replied, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. "I have a message for you from humanity. We do not surrender. We do not serve. We do not forgive." The Vorthon general's expression changed from confidence to anger. "Then you will die with honor, Captain. I respect brave enemies." The connection ended. Ginwu turned to his crew. "All remaining ships, follow my lead. We're going to give them something to remember us by." The last human ships charged directly at the Vorthan fleet. It was a suicide run, but it allowed the final evacuation shuttles to escape Earth's gravity well. The Defiant rammed into a Vorthan cruiser, both ships exploding in a blaze of light that could be seen from the planet's surface. With space cleared, of human resistance, the Vorthons began their bombardment of Earth. Plasma beams struck military bases, government buildings, and industrial centers. Cities burned as energy weapons turned buildings into melted metal and glass. Dr. Yunsu watched from the evacuation shuttle as her home world burned. Fires could be seen from orbit as the Vorthons systematically destroyed humanity's military capacity. Her brother was dead. Her laboratory was destroyed. Everything she had ever known was being torn apart by alien weapons, but she still had her research data, still had her knowledge, and she still had her anger. General Tejo stood on the bridge of his flagship watching the bombardment. His tactical officers reported successful strikes on all major targets. Human resistance was ending. The conquest was proceeding exactly as planned. General, his communication officer, reported, "We're receiving surrender offers from several human colonies and other star systems. They've seen the destruction of Earth and don't want to suffer the same fate." Tejo smiled with satisfaction. "Excellent. Send occupation forces to secure those systems. Begin strip mining operations on the human homeworld. Their resources will fuel our next conquest." He walked to the forward viewing port and looked down at the burning planet below. The humans had fought better than expected, but the result was never in doubt. The Vorthon Empire was too strong. Human technology was too primitive. The war was over before it had really begun. Admiral Sujin crouched in the ruins of a mountain command bunker, one of the few military installations that had survived the orbital bombardment. Around her, the surviving members of Earth's government and military leadership waited in the darkness. "What's our status?" she asked the communications officer. "We have scattered resistance groups in major cities. Maybe 10,000 military personnel survived the bombardment. The fleet is gone except for ships that were outside the system when the attack began." Sujin nodded grimly. "Send a coded message to all human colonies and military outposts. Use the emergency channels. Tell them Earth has fallen." She paused and looked around at the faces of her fellow survivors. "Tell them to begin Operation Endless Hunt. No mercy. No quarter. No forgiveness." The message went out through hidden communication networks to human settlements across the galaxy. On mining worlds and research stations, on military bases and trading posts, humans received the news that their homeworld had fallen, but they also received their orders. The hunt was about to begin. 6 months after the fall of Earth, the galaxy seemed peaceful. The Vorthon Empire celebrated their victory with grand parades on their homeworld. General Tejo received the highest military honors from the Vorthon Emperor himself. News broadcasts across the galaxy spoke of the swift conquest and the end of human resistance. But in the dark spaces between stars, something was stirring. Colonel Minho crouched in the shadow of a storage depot on the edge of Vorthon space. His team of 12 human soldiers waited silently behind him. They had been tracking this supply convoy for 3 weeks, learning its routes and timing. Tonight they would strike their first blow against the empire that had destroyed their world. "Remember," Minho whispered to his team, "no survivors, no evidence, no mercy." The Vorthon supply ships landed exactly on schedule. The crews began unloading weapons and supplies for the occupation forces on nearby worlds. The aliens worked slowly, confident. In their safety, they had no idea that death was watching them from the darkness. Minho's team moved like ghosts through the facility. They had trained for this kind of operation their entire military careers. Silent killing, invisible movement, perfect coordination. The Vorthon guards never knew what hit them. Within 20 minutes, every alien in the facility was dead. The supply ships were destroyed. The depot was rigged with explosives that would erase all evidence of what had happened. When the smoke cleared, it would look like an accident. "Good work," Minho told his team as they prepared to leave. "But this is just the beginning. We have a lot more work to do." Halfway across the galaxy, Captain Subin piloted her stealth ship through the outer edges of a Vorthon star system. The vessel was smaller than most human ships, but packed with advanced technology. It could hide from sensors, strike without warning, and disappear before the enemy could react. "Target acquired," reported her navigator, Lieutenant Wenho. Vorthan patrol ship, 3 crew members, standard weapons package. Subin studied the tactical display. The enemy ship was alone, far from any help, perfect for what she had planned. Arm weapons, she ordered. Prepare for attack run, the stealth. Ship dropped out of its hiding place and fired a single missile. The weapons struck the Vorthon patrol ship before they could even send a distress signal. The explosion lit up the darkness for just a moment, then faded back to black. Any survivors? Subin asked. Negative, Captain. Clean kill. Subin nodded and ordered her ship to move to the next target. She had 5 more Vorthan vessels to destroy before dawn. Each attack was planned to look like a different cause. Equipment failure, asteroid collision, reactor malfunction. The Vorthons would never realize they were under attack. On the industrial world of Kepler-7, Engineer J1 worked frantically in his hidden laboratory. The facility was built inside an abandoned mine shaft, invisible to orbital sensors. Here he studied the Vorthon technology that Dr. Yunsu had smuggled out during the evacuation of Earth. I think I found something, he told his assistant, Doctor. Namsu, look at these shield frequency patterns. They have a weakness we can exploit. The holographic display showed the complex energy fields that protected Vorthan ships. Jaewon had been studying them for months, looking for any flaw he could use. Finally, he had found one. Their shields are designed to stop kinetic weapons. In traditional energy beams, he explained, but they're vulnerable to rotating pulse frequencies. If we can build weapons that shift their energy patterns every few seconds, we can punch right through their defenses. Namsu looked at the data with excitement. How long will it take to develop these weapons? 3 months, Jaewon replied. Maybe less if we work around the clock. But we need to test them on real Vorthan ships. We need live targets. Back on occupied Earth, General Taeho stood in his command center, overlooking the ruins of what had once been New York City. The humans had rebuilt some of the damaged areas. They worked slowly and without enthusiasm. Good. Defeated enemies should not be happy. General, his aide called out. We have some concerning reports from the outer territories. Taeho turned. From the window. What kind of reports? Supply convoys going missing? Patrol ships failing to report in? Communication blackouts in several sectors? The general waved his hand dismissively. Space is dangerous. Ships break down. Equipment fails. These things happen in any large empire. Yes, sir, the aide replied. But the frequency of incidents has increased by 40% in the last 2 months. Our intelligence division thinks there might be a pattern. Taeho laughed. A pattern? You think the defeated humans are somehow attacking our forces? Around you, their world is conquered. Their fleets are destroyed. Their leaders are dead or hiding in caves. What could they possibly do to threaten us? The aide looked uncomfortable, but pressed on. Sir, we know that some human ships escaped. The battle? They could be organizing resistance activities. If there are human pirates in space, we will deal with them, Taeho said firmly. Send more patrol ships to the affected areas. Double the escort for supply convoys. But don't waste my time with conspiracy theories about organized resistance. General Taeho didn't know was that Admiral Sujin was very much alive. She had established a hidden command center in the asteroid belt of an uninhabited system. From there, she coordinated the human resistance across the galaxy. The command center was built inside a hollowed-out asteroid, visible to sensors and hidden from casual observation. Inside, dozens of human officers worked at communication. Consoles, tracking every Vorthan ship and installation they could find. Status report, Sujin ordered as she entered the main control room. Colonel Minho's team has hit 12 targets in the last month, reported Captain Eunicio Meal. All missions. Successful. No survivors. No evidence. Captain Subin has destroyed 18 patrol ships and 4 supply vessels, added Lieutenant Parkjun. The Vorthans are starting to increase their escort sizes. Sujin studied the tactical display showing Vorthan positions across the galaxy. Red dots marked their major bases and fleets. Yellow dots showed supply routes and patrol patterns. Green dots marked successful human attacks. Good, she said. We're making them nervous, but we need to escalate our operations. Have we heard from Engineer J1 about the new weapons? Admiral, Captain Unesio replied. He says the first prototype weapons will be ready for testing within 6 weeks. He needs live targets to verify their effectiveness.
Ow.
Sujin smiled grimly. He'll have them. Signal Captain Subin to capture a Vorthan ship intact. We need something to test our new toys on. She turned to address the entire command center. People, we've been hitting them with pinpricks for months. Individual ships, small targets, careful. Strikes the Vorthans think we're just scattered pirates, causing minor problems. The room fell silent as everyone listened to their admiral. It's time to show them what we're really capable of. Signal all units to prepare for Phase 2 operations. We're going to hit them hard enough to get their attention. Lieutenant Parkchin looked up from his console. Admiral, we're receiving. A message from the Outer Rim colonies? They're reporting Vorthon ships massing near the Zeta sector. How many ships? 12 capital ships, Admiral, plus escorts. They appear to be preparing for another conquest. Sujin's eyes hardened. Hey, perfect. Signal Colonel Minho and Captain Subin to rendezvous at coordinates 77 Alpha. We're going to give the Vorthons a surprise they'll never forget. She walked to the main display and pointed at the enemy fleet positions. About to demonstrate why you should never attack humans. We don't just defend ourselves. Hunt down our enemies and destroy them completely. The asteroid command center buzzed with activity as human officers prepared for their first major operation. Across the galaxy, human ships began moving toward their targets. The hunt was about to become deadly serious. General Teho stood in his comfortable command center, completely unaware that his empire was about to face an enemy unlike any they had ever fought. An enemy that would never stop, never surrender, and never forgive. The humans were coming for them all. The Vorthon fleet hung in space like deadly metal flowers around the mining world of Kepler 9. 12 massive warships and their escort vessels prepared to strip the planet of its valuable minerals. The local alien population had already surrendered. Without a fight, General Teho expected this conquest to be as easy as all the others. He was wrong. Captain Jinwoo floated in the medical bay of the human ship Vengeance, his body still healing from the injuries he had received during Earth's fall. Everyone believed he had died when his destroyer exploded, but a rescue pod had kept him alive in the cold vacuum of space. Now, he was ready to fight again. How do you feel? Asked Dr. Yunsu as she checked his medical readings. She had also survived the fall of Earth and now served as the Resistance's chief scientist. Ready for battle? Jinwoo replied, sitting up on the medical table. How many ships do we have for the operation? 23 vessels, Yunsu said. Not all of them are military ships. Some are converted cargo haulers and mining vessels, but they all carried the new weapons J1 developed. Jinwoo nodded. The new pulse weapons had been tested on captured Vorthon ships and proved devastatingly effective. They could punch through enemy shields like they were made of paper. Now it was time to use them in real combat. Meanwhile, Commander Hyanki worked quietly in his diplomatic office on the neutral world of Nexus Prime, to the Galaxy. He appeared to be a defeated ambassador trying to find sanctuary for human refugees. In reality, he was conducting a different kind of warfare. Ambassador Kethra, he said to the insect-like alien sitting across from his desk. I have some information that might interest your people. The Kethmoran delegate leaned forward on her 6 legs. What kind of information? Hyanki activated a holographic display showing Vorthan fleet movements. The Empire is planning to invade your border worlds next. They think your species is too weak to resist their expansion. Kethra's compound eyes widened. How do you know this? We have our sources, Hyanki said simply. The question is what your people plan to do about it. Similar conversations were taking place across the galaxy as human agents shared intelligence with other species. The goal was not to start a galactic war, but to isolate the Vorthons politically. Every species that withdrew support made the Empire weaker. Back in the Kepler system, Admiral Sujin watched the enemy fleet from the bridge of her flagship. Vorthons had positioned themselves in a standard occupation formation, confident that no one would dare attack them. All ships report ready, Admiral, said Captain Unesio from the communications station. Sujin studied the tactical display one more time. The human ships were hidden behind the system's outer planets, invisible to Vorthon sensors. They had practiced this attack formation for months. Every ship captain knew exactly what to do. "Signal the fleet," she ordered. "Operation Thunder begins now." 23 human ships dropped out of hiding and accelerated toward the Vorthon formation. The enemy detected them immediately, but the speed of the attack caught them completely off guard. Enemy contacts called out the sensor officer on General Tejo's flagship, its multiple ships approaching at high speed. Tejo looked at the tactical display with confusion. "How many ships?" 23 confirmed. "General, they appear to be human vessels." The general laughed. 23 ships against our entire fleet? Have the humans lost their minds?" He activated the ship's communication system to address his fleet. "All ships, prepare to destroy the human raiders. This will be an easy victory." The first human ships reached weapons range and opened fire. The new pulse weapons struck Vorthon shields with devastating effect. Instead of deflecting harmlessly, the energy beams punched straight through and tore into the enemy hulls. "Are failing," reported Tejo's tactical officer in shock. "How are their weapons penetrating our defenses?" Before the general could answer, explosions began rippling across his flagship's hull. Similar scenes played out across the Vorthon fleet as human weapons proved brutally effective against their technology. Captain Jinwoo commanded the assault from his ship, Retribution. His targeting computer locked onto a Vorthon cruiser and fired a full salvo of pulse missiles. The enemy ship's shields collapsed and the hull split apart like a broken egg. "Target destroyed," reported his weapons officer. Moving to next target, the battle lasted only 18 minutes. When it ended, the entire Vorthon fleet was destroyed or disabled. Not a single human ship was lost. The survivors on the few remaining Vorthon vessels sent desperate distress signals before human boarding parties silenced them forever. General Tejo found himself trapped on his burning flagship with nowhere to run. As human soldiers in powered armor stormed his bridge, he finally understood the magnitude of his mistake. "You cannot do this," he gasped, as Captain Jinwoo approached him. "I'm a general of the Vorthon Empire. I demand to be treated according to galactic law." Jinwoo's face was hidden behind his helmet visor, but his voice was cold as space itself. "You destroyed our world. You killed our people. You started this war. Now you will face the consequences." The last thing General Tejo saw was the flash of a human plasma weapon. News of the Kepler battle spread across the galaxy within hours. 12 Vorthon capital ships destroyed by a smaller human force, an entire fleet wiped out with no survivors. The supposedly defeated humans had struck back with devastating effectiveness. War Chief Kazran stood in the Vorthon command center on their homeworld, studying the battle reports with growing alarm. He had served under General Tejo for many years, but he was smarter than his former commander. "How is this possible?" demanded the Vorthon Emperor, his massive frame shaking with rage. "Our ships had better armor, better weapons, better everything. How did a handful of human raiders destroy an entire fleet?" Kazran pointed to the technical analysis on his display screen. "Their weapons have changed, Your Majesty. They have developed technology specifically designed to counter our defenses. This was not a desperate raid by scattered refugees. This was a planned military operation." The Emperor's forearms gestured angrily. "Then we will send more ships. We will hunt down these human terrorists and destroy them completely." "With respect, Your Majesty," Kazran said carefully, "I suggest we consider a different approach. The humans have proven they can hurt us. Perhaps we should negotiate a peace settlement." The Emperor roared with fury. "Never. The Vorthon Empire does not negotiate with inferiors. Send orders to all fleet commanders. Double the patrols. Triple the escorts. Find these humans and crush them." What the Emperor didn't realize was that the humans had been planning for exactly this response. Admiral Sujin had anticipated that the Vorthons would escalate rather than negotiate. She was counting on it. In her asteroid command center, she watched intelligence reports pour in from across the galaxy. Vorthon fleets were moving to defensive positions. Patrol routes were being changed. Escort formations were being strengthened. "Perfect," she said to her staff. They're doing exactly what we wanted. Signal all units to begin Phase 3 operations. Captain Unesio looked up from her console. Admiral, we're also receiving political reports from Commander Hyanki. 17 species have withdrawn their support for the Vorthon Empire since the Kepler battle. They're beginning to see the humans as the winning side. Sujin smiled grimly. Good. Fear is a powerful motivator. The more isolated the Vorthons become, the easier our job gets. She turned to address the entire command center. People we've proven we can hurt them. We're going to prove we can destroy them. This war is far from over. Dr. Yunsu entered the command center carrying a datapad. Admiral, I have the technical analysis from the Kepler battle. Our new weapons performed even better than expected. Jaewon thinks he can improve their effectiveness by another 30%. How long, Sujin asked? 2 weeks for the upgrades? But we'll need more resources, more ships, more weapons. The Admiral nodded. We'll get them. The Galaxy is starting to believe we can win. That means allies, supplies, and safe harbors for our operations. She looked at the strategic display showing Vorthon positions across known space. Red enemy markers filled dozens of star systems. But now, there were also green markers showing human forces and yellow markers indicating neutral or allied territory. Vorthons made one critical mistake, she said. They thought destroying Earth would end our resistance. Instead, it gave us a reason to fight that will never go away. They created an enemy that will hunt them to the edge of the galaxy. The command center buzzed with activity as human officers planned their next operations. Across the stars, human ships prepared for new missions. The hunt was escalating, and the Vorthons were about to discover just how dangerous their enemies had become. The war was entering a new phase, and humanity intended to win it. 1 year after the Kepler battle, the Vorthon Empire was crumbling. What had once been a mighty force, spanning dozens of star systems, was now a collection of isolated outposts, desperately trying to survive. Human fleets appeared without warning, struck with devastating precision, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. War Chief Kazran stood in the emergency command center on the Vorthon homeworld, watching red markers disappear from the galactic map one by one. Each marker represented a military base, supply depot, or fleet that had been destroyed by human forces. Status report, he ordered, his voice heavy with exhaustion. We have lost contact with the Rigel sector, reported Commander Vexta. The garrison at Antares base has been destroyed. The mining operation at Centauri 7 went silent 3 hours ago. Kazran studied the tactical display with growing despair. The humans were everywhere and nowhere. They struck simultaneously. Across multiple star systems, coordinating attacks across impossible distances, no military force in galactic history had ever shown such organization. How many ships do we have left? He asked. 47 capital ships remaining, Vexter replied. But they are scattered across different systems. We cannot bring them together without exposing them to human attack. On the other side of the galaxy, Admiral Sujin reviewed the same information from her new command ship. The massive battlecruiser, Endless Hunt. The vessel had been built using resources and technology donated by species, who now supported the human cause. Excellent progress, she told her staff. Signal Fleet Commander Jinwoo to begin the assault on the Vega system. Captain Subin should hit the supply bases at Alpha Centauri. Colonel Minho will take his special forces to eliminate the research facility on Proxima 3. The human fleet had grown from a handful of survivors to over 200 ships. Some were purpose-built warships constructed in hidden shipyards. Others were converted civilian vessels armed with the latest human weapons. All of them were crewed by people who had lost everything to Vorthon aggression. Dr. Yunsu entered the command center carrying her latest invention. The device looked like a simple metal cylinder, but it contained enough destructive power to level a city. The new quantum warheads are ready for deployment, she announced. Each one can penetrate any known shield technology and create a controlled fusion reaction. Very clean, very efficient, very final. Admiral Sujin examined the weapon with professional interest. How many do we have? 50 units for the first production run. Jaewon's team is working around the clock to build more. We should have enough to equip the entire fleet within 2 months. Captain Unesio looked up from her communications console. Admiral, receiving a priority message from Commander Hyenki on Nexus Prime. The Galactic Council wants to arrange peace talks. Sujin's expression hardened. What are the terms? The Vorthons are offering to withdraw from Earth and pay reparations for the damage they caused. They want an immediate ceasefire and formal negotiations. The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. Around her, the command center fell silent as everyone waited for her response. Finally, she spoke. Send this message to the Galactic Council. Humanity's terms are simple. Complete surrender of all Vorthon military forces. War crimes trials for every officer involved in the attack on Earth. Full reparations for our losses, and the return of every human prisoner they have taken. What? If they refuse? Asked Captain Unesio. Then we continue hunting them until there are no more Vorthons left to refuse. Elder Rinda arrived at the council chambers on Nexus Prime, feeling older than her 400 years, the galaxy she had. None was changing in ways that terrified her. The humans had proven to be everything she had warned about and more. Commander Hyenki sat across from her in the diplomatic waiting area. He looked exactly the same as he had 2 years ago when she first warned the council about human nature. Calm, polite, and utterly implacable.
Commander, she said quietly, I tried to warn them.
I told the council what would happen if anyone attacked your people. Hyenki nodded respectfully. You did your best, Elder. The fault lies with those who chose not to listen. Your people are destroying an entire civilization, Rinda said. The Vorthon Empire has existed for over 1,000 years. Billions of lives hang in the balance. They should have thought of that before they attacked Earth, Hyenki replied simply. They killed millions of our people. They burned our cities. They occupied our world. Did they show mercy then? Rinda felt a chill run through her ancient body. What do you want from the galaxy, Commander? What will it take to stop this war? Just as Hyenki said, nothing more, nothing less. The Vorthons must face the consequences of their actions. Back in Vorthon space, War Chief Kazron received the devastating news he had been dreading. The humans had launched their largest operation yet, striking 17 different targets simultaneously across the Empire. The shipyards at Rigel are destroyed, reported his intelligence officer. The fleet base at Vega has been captured. Our forces at Centauri have surrendered after their shields failed. Kazron closed his eyes in despair. The humans had somehow managed to coordinate attacks across light years of space with perfect timing. Their intelligence networks seemed to know every Vorthon movement before it happened. How are they doing this? He asked. How do they coordinate so perfectly across such vast distances? Commander Vexta pulled up a tactical analysis on the main display. Our scientists believe they have developed some form of instantaneous communication. Technology. They can share information and coordinate attacks in real time, regardless of distance. Impossible, Kazron said. That level of technology is beyond anything we have seen from any species. The humans are full of surprises, Vexta replied grimly. They seem to innovate faster when they are angry. Captain Jinwoo stood on the bridge of his flagship Victory, watching Vorthon surrender broadcasts from across the captured systems. One by one, enemy commanders were giving up rather than face destruction. The human fleet had become so effective that resistance seemed pointless. Signal all ships, he ordered. Begin Phase 4 operations. Full pursuit of all remaining Vorthon forces. No enemy ship escapes. No base remains operational. His tactical officer looked up from the sensor display. Captain, we're detecting Vorthon ships attempting to flee toward the Galactic Rim. They appear to be abandoning their core territories. Jinwoo smiled grimly. Signal Admiral Sujin.
What?
Tell her the Vorthons are running. They think they can escape to the edge of known space and hide until we give up the hunt. What are your orders, sir? We follow them, no matter how far they run. No matter where they hide, we will find them. The hunt continues until every Vorthon ship is captured or destroyed. Admiral Sujin received Jinwoo's message while reviewing the latest intelligence reports. The Vorthon Empire was in full collapse, their remaining forces scattered and demoralized. But she knew the war was not over yet. Signal all fleet commanders, she ordered. Prepare for deep space operations. We are going to follow the Vorthenes to the edge of the galaxy if necessary. Dr. Yunsu looked up from her research station. Admiral, our long-range sensors are detecting massive energy signatures from the Vorthon homeworld. They appear to be preparing some kind of last-ditch defensive effort. Sujin studied the sensor data with interest. How long until our forces can reach their homeworld? 3 weeks if we push the engines to maximum. But Admiral Intelligence suggests they may have some kind of super weapon, something they have been keeping in reserve. Admiral's expression never changed. Then we will deal with whatever they throw at us. The humans did not come this far to be stopped by Vorthan desperation. She turned to address her entire command staff. People, we are approaching the end of this war. The Vorthenes are making their final stand. But remember why we fight. Remember Earth. Remember our dead. We will not stop until justice is served. War Chief Kazran stood in the deepest bunker on the Vorthan homeworld, watching the final preparations for their last desperate gambit. The super weapon had been built in secret over decades, designed to destroy entire star systems if the Empire ever faced extinction. Are you certain this will work? He asked the chief scientist. The weapon will definitely destroy any fleet within a full light year of this system, the scientist replied. But the energy release will also sterilize our homeworld. We will all die along with our enemies. Kazran nodded grimly. If the Vorthan Empire was going to end, at least they would take their human tormentors with them. He had no idea that the humans had been monitoring their weapon development for months, and had already prepared a counter-strategy. The hunt was about to reach its final phase, and humanity intended to finish what the Vorthans had started. The human fleet arrived at the edge of the Vorthan home system like a dark tide flowing through space. 300 ships moved in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with the light of distant stars. At their head flew the massive battleship, Endless Hunt. Admiral Sujin's flagship, and the most powerful vessel humanity had ever built. War Chief Kazran watched the approaching fleet from his command. Bunkered deep beneath the surface of the Vorthan homeworld, his sensors showed the true scope of human naval power for the first time. Battleships, cruisers, destroyers, and support vessels stretched across space in a display that took his breath away. How many ships? He asked his tactical officer. 300 confirmed contacts, came the reply, plus an unknown number of smaller vessels that our sensors cannot detect. This is the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. Kazran felt his heart sink. The Vorthan Empire at its peak had never fielded more than 200 ships at once. The humans had not only matched their greatest achievement, but exceeded it using the resources of a single devastated world. Admiral Sujin stood on the bridge of her flagship, studying the tactical display that showed every Vorthan position in the system. Her intelligence network had mapped every military base, every weapon platform, every hiding place the enemy possessed. Signal the Vorthan command, she ordered. Give them one final chance to surrender. The communication channel opened and War Chief Kazran's image appeared on the main screen. He looked older than his years, worn down by months of defeat and retreat. Admiral Sujin, he said formally. I am War Chief Kazran, now leader of what remains of the Vorthan Empire. I assume you have come to finish what your people started. We came to finish what your people started, Sujin corrected him. You attacked Earth. You killed our civilians. You occupied our world. We are here to collect the debt you owe. Kazran straightened his shoulders. I was not the one who ordered the attack on your world. General Tejo made that decision against my advice. I tried to warn him about human nature. But you are the one who must answer for it, Sujin replied. Surrender now, and your people will receive fair treatment. Your military will be disbanded and your leaders will face trial, but your civilians will be spared. The war chief was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. I cannot accept those terms, Admiral. The Vorthon Empire has existed for 1,000 years. I will not be the one to end it. Then you have chosen your path, Sujin said. You have 1 hour to evacuate any civilians who wish to leave. After that, we begin our final assault. The communication ended. Admiral Sujin turned to her staff officers. Signal all ships. Prepare for Operation Final Justice. Dr. Yunso, are your quantum disruption devices ready? Dr. Yunso nodded from her science station. All devices are calibrated and ready for deployment. When activated, they will neutralize any large-scale energy weapons in the system. Captain Jinwoo spoke up from the tactical console. Admiral, our deep space sensors are detecting massive energy buildup from the planet's surface. They appear to be charging some kind of super weapon. Sujin smiled grimly. We know about their planet killer device. Our intelligence network has been monitoring its construction for 6 months. Dr. Yunsu's disruption. Technology was specifically designed to counter it. On the surface of the Vorthon homeworld, scientists worked frantically to complete the charging sequence for their ultimate weapon. The device could destroy everything within a light year of the planet, including the human fleet. It would also kill every living thing on the homeworld, but that was a price the Vorthon leadership was willing to pay. Charging sequence at 70%, reported the chief scientist. We need another 20 minutes to reach full power. War Chief Kazran watched the human fleet through his periscope. The enemy ships held their positions just outside weapons range, patient as always. He wondered if they knew about the super weapon, or if they were simply planning their attack. Sir called out his communications officer. We're receiving evacuation requests from civilian settlements across the planet. Want to leave before the battle begins? Kazran closed his eyes in pain. His own people no longer trusted their government to protect them. They would rather flee to an uncertain future than die in a final battle they did not believe in. Grant all evacuation requests, he ordered. Let any civilian who wants to leave board the transport ships. Admiral Sujin watched thousands of Vorthon civilian vessels streaming away from their homeworld. Her fleet moved aside to create safe corridors for the refugees. This was not a war against innocent people. This was justice against those who had chosen violence. Civilian evacuation appears to be complete, reported Captain Unicio. We're also detecting several military vessels attempting to leave with the refugees. Scan them carefully, Sujin ordered. Any ship carrying military equipment or personnel will be stopped and searched. No Vorthon military assets leave this system. The human fleet began moving toward the planet in a carefully planned formation. Each ship had specific targets and roles in the coming battle. They had practiced this operation hundreds of times. In simulation, Dr. Yunsu activated her quantum disruption devices as the fleet closed to weapons range. Invisible energy fields spread throughout the system, creating interference patterns that would make large energy weapons impossible to fire. On the planet's surface, the super weapons suddenly began experiencing massive system failures. Energy readings dropped to 0 as the quantum disruption field interfered with its power systems. What's happening? Demanded War Chief Kazran. Unknown interference with all our energy systems, replied the chief scientist. The humans appear to have some kind of suppression technology. We cannot fire the weapon. Kazran stared at the tactical display in amazement. The humans had not only known about their secret weapon, but had developed technology specifically to counter it. Their intelligence network was even better than he had feared. The human fleet opened fire with devastating precision. Quantum warheads struck military targets across the planet, while pulse weapons destroyed orbital defenses. The Vorthon military fought back desperately. But their weapons seemed primitive compared to the advanced technology arrayed against them. Captain, Skinwoo led a squadron of assault ships toward the planet's main military command center. His sensors showed that the enemy's shield generators were failing under the concentrated bombardment. All ships, prepare for planetary assault, he ordered. Remember, we target only military installations and government buildings. Areas are off limits. The battle for the Vorthon homeworld lasted 6 hours. When it ended, every military base had been destroyed or captured. Every government building had been seized by human forces. The 1,000-year-old Vorthon Empire had finally come to an end. War Chief Kazran sat in his ruined command bunker, surrounded by human soldiers in powered armor. Captain Jinwoo stood before him, his helmet removed to show his face. It's over, Jinwoo said simply. Your empire is finished. Your military is defeated. Your leaders will face trial for war crimes. Kazran looked up at his captor with something approaching respect. You humans are everything Elder Rinda said you were. Relentless, implacable, terrifying. We are also just, Jinwu replied. Your people will be treated fairly. Your civilians will be protected. But those responsible for the attack on Earth will answer for their crimes. 3 months later, the Galactic Council convened on Nexus Prime to witness the war crimes trials. Elder Rinda sat in the observer section, watching as Vorthan military leaders faced human prosecutors. The trials were conducted with perfect fairness. Every defendant received legal representation. Every piece of evidence was carefully examined. Every witness was allowed to testify, but the evidence was overwhelming. The Vorthines had attacked without provocation. They had targeted civilian populations. They had occupied Earth for their own benefit. One by one, the guilty verdicts were announced. Commander Hyanki stood before the assembled delegates as the trials concluded. The Vorthan Empire is no more, he announced.
How their military has been
disbanded, their conquered worlds have been freed. Justice has been served. He paused and looked around the great hall. Let this be a lesson to all who would threaten humanity. We are a peaceful people. We seek friendship and cooperation with our galactic neighbors. But we will defend ourselves against any aggression. His voice grew harder. If you attack us, we will hunt you across the galaxy. We will never stop. We will never surrender. We will never forgive. Elder Rinda watched the human ambassador with a mixture of admiration and fear. The humans had proven themselves to be exactly what she had warned about. They were apex predators disguised as civilized beings. Admiral Sujin stood on the observation deck of her flagship, looking down at the rebuilt cities of Earth. The planet was healing from its wounds, but the scars would remain forever. Humanity had paid a terrible price to learn their place in the galaxy, but they had learned it well. Dr. Yunsu joined her at the viewing port. The new defense platforms are online, she reported. Earth will never be defenseless again. Sujin nodded. Around the planet, massive orbital stations bristled with the most advanced weapons human science could create. Similar defenses protected every human colony and outpost. Good, she said. But the best defense is making sure no one wants to attack us in the first place. She turned away from the window and walked toward the bridge. Signaled the fleet. We have patrol schedules to maintain. The galaxy needs to see that humanity is watching. The human ships spread out across known space, their presence a constant reminder of what happened to those who threatened Earth. They were not conquerors or oppressors. They were guardians and protectors. They were also hunters, patient and relentless, waiting for the next predator, foolish enough to mistake human kindness for weakness. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity was no longer the young, naive species that had first joined the Galactic Council. They were now a force to be respected and feared. Elder Rinde's warning had proved prophetic. The humans would indeed hunt their enemies to the ends of the galaxy. They would never stop until justice was served.